Hello, everybody. This is Average Joe Squad here.
Song gets 134.
And welcome to a very 90s teenage girl episode of Remember the Hyphen, the show where we talk about comics, movies, video games, everything in between.
Yeah, we're recording this at my place, and this is the only place where we can film, so we're sharing this bed.
Not like that.
Though some of you probably think that. But anyway, so what one are we recording first?
I honestly forget which one. Is it? Oh, I remember now. So this has been an idea we've kicked around for a while now. Just something that I've had written down as an idea that we've kind of thought about filming it before, but then something else comes up, something else we want to film, some new piece of nugget information comes out.
Yeah.
But while I'm sure everybody that's watched the show knows that we're into comic books, movies, video games, stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that me and Adam here both are into that most people probably wouldn't suspect. And because this has come up just in conversations over the past year or so, and kind of figured maybe it'd be kind of fun to do a video where we just talk about some other interests we have that aren't typically what you would suspect out of this show.
That'd be kind of nice to do podcast stuff where you guys actually learn a little bit about us. Not too much, but a little bit. Just to kind of give you an idea of where we come from when we give our opinions on things. Because everyone always talks about, you can't complain about food if you don't know how to cook. Which I'm like, that's stupid.
I know how to cook, I just don't eat stuff.
Well, yeah, I know. He has a 3 mile long list of things he don't like to eat. I'm like, you might as well just tell me the things you like and I'll be more impressed with it. But, so basically, this is just... Basically, welcome to us talking about things that we normally wouldn't talk about on the show, and just overall... things that maybe we could see how this does well, and maybe we could find some stuff we could talk about for the podcast that isn't comic books and stuff. Just kind of branch out.
Number one, we like to rip on Cody.
Things that will not get us yelled at on YouTube, thank you very much. That's technically a bullying thing.
Excuse me?
But, do you want to go first on what you wanted to talk about? Or,
Yeah, I can go first. So there's quite a few things that I'm into that most people wouldn't suspect. I've probably mentioned a couple things here or there in passing on the show, but probably one of the biggest ones, honestly, for me is that I'm really into shipwrecks, like just underwater shipwrecks. I'm really into that. It really started when I was young, and I was really into the Titanic. Like when I was probably about 6, I knew everything about the ship. Like I devoured books of it every time I could find them.
Yeah, we've had many a discussion about the Titanic, usually leading into me bringing up animated Titanic movies with rapping dogs in them.
I don't want to talk about the one where the whale saves everyone. We're not talking about that.
You've had some magic moonbeams fell into the water, and now your tears.
Might as well have had 5 will come over in a fucking Titanic. Titanic sinks. Oh. It's because 5 will. Stuart Little was involved somehow.
And then later they go to Atlantis and gain immortality. Oh, that is a stupid... I don't know who thought that was a good idea to make a movie. But yeah, no, I will admit, yeah, because it makes kind of sense to you because you're a history major. So, you probably would like certain history things or have a extensive knowledge that most people wouldn't. Actually, it probably helped a lot when we were doing... when we were talking about Red Sun, you had a lot to contribute with the Russian stuff because I didn't know all of it.
Yeah, I knew quite a bit because when I was in college, I took during my undergrad study, I took a Russian history course.
For me, I guess we could start with something a little easy. I actually am a big Garfield guy. Like when I was a kid, I used to love watching the Garfield and Friends TV show. I have a lot of the books that are collections of the strips. I actually find it really interesting seeing early Jim Davis compared to the more commercialized kind of. I wouldn't say weak sauce, but he's certainly gotten more of a. Well, he certainly has more of a definitive style to how he writes the strips. He doesn't really deviate from it much, aside from when the fans were like, "You should have John and Liz finally start dating," which I feel like defeats the purpose of the whole thing with John and Liz. But I really love because it's interesting to see how much more risks Davis took at the beginning of those strips. He had John live with another man, which I don't think was are they gay thing, but I think it was interesting to see in the 70s you had 2 bachelors living together, which was not really a common thing in the late 70s, early 80s sort of thing.
Yeah.
you also had stuff where like Garfield would like actually have like actually scary moments or like moments that are actually sad. Whereas nowadays it very much is just Garfield is just chilling around the house.
Garfield's fat and eats lasagna.
Yeah, like because like that was one of the things I always liked about a lot of the Garfield TV specials. I actually showed you one, Garfield Babes and Bullets.
Yeah.
Where Garfield imagines himself as like a detective and has the hots for human women for some reason. That one is so weird because it's like, hey, let's have Garfield just like solve a murder. Or Garfield, His Nine Lives, where like Garfield is like an experiment like in a lab and he turns like a mutant dog. If you've never seen anything really weird, you need to check out Garfield His Nine Lives and Garfield Babes and Bullets. They both have Babes and Bullets was originally a short story in the Nine Lives collection, but they liked that one so much they made it its own short. Whereas they had to replace a couple of the stories for Nine Lives. Particularly this really horrifying one where this cat murders an old woman. It's really messed up. Yeah, I really love comic strips, and I read them a lot growing up as a kid. I even actually had a Garfield comic strip maker for Windows 98. Oh, that was really weird. I made a lot of those old strips when I was a kid. I don't think I have them anymore though, unfortunately.
Another one that for me is, and one day when we do a what's in collections video, which that's gonna be an interesting one, but I think it's gonna have to wait until after I get moved because most of my stuff is in a state of either packed, unpacked, or half put away and stuff. Yeah. But I have a very big vinyl record collection, along with a pretty big 8-track collection with working players for both of them that Adam has seen. Like I don't. And you've only seen half of the vinyl.
I have only seen half the vinyl you have. Your music collection is extensive. He's like, what? How many songs did you have on your phone at one point?
I had 15,000 at one point, and that was before my hard drive on the other laptop crashed, and I probably lost a little bit of it, but it's all stuff I had backed up. But it's just gonna be a process of ripping it all to my hard drive again.
Yeah, I know how that goes. It's kind of funny, especially because nowadays vinyl is kind of becoming the in thing again. With the fact that you can walk into a Walmart right now and buy yourself a vinyl. Well, you can't really walk into a Walmart right now, but, you know, you could.
If you're not essential, stay the hell home.
Yeah, basically. I guess I should point out, we are recording these during that, but to be fair, him and I work in retail, so it's not like...
Multipass.
Well, yeah, not only that, if we've already been in the thick of it, so might as well record.
If he dies, he dies.
Speaking of yeah, your vinyl collection is rather impressive. I myself actually am kind of like that because I actually like to collect old anime videotapes and DVDs.
Like that one import we found when we went to Sharon the one day.
Just because, like, actually, you know what? Hold on. Give me a second. I'll actually bring that over.
We're totally running off script here.
But you want to talk more about your vinyl collection while I'm looking for it? If you want, keep talking about the vinyl collection.
Yeah, but with my vinyl collection, basically, I started probably when I was in middle school, and it was just something I got into because I was really getting into music, and a lot of the times, I didn't really have a lot of money for CDs, and vinyl was like, you could get vinyl for like a quarter at a thrift store. I'm sure you've seen that, Adam, where like you can get vinyl at secondhand stores. You can get it very cheap.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sometimes most stores nowadays actually are kind of starting to catch on to that. But most of the ones I go to, you can still get them cheap as all hell.
All right, I'll just hang back like this.
That was hurting my back.
No, that's fair. Like that. But yeah, I found this at at this electronic. What is that electronic store even called? Anyways,
I can't remember. It's like a half vape store, half pinball arcade, and half video game store.
Yeah, they sell old school pinball machines and arcade cabinets too. But yeah, this is a Gundam 83 Stardust Memory TV CD, I think was what it's called. The thing is broken because like this is all cracked but like the thing with anime you have to remember is like nowadays and even into like the early 2000s it was really easy to get anime on like because like basically you had all these dubbing companies that could just buy licensing to stuff, which also makes it harder to recollect it for Blu-ray and such. But
Isn't that that?
Thanks.
I was like, what is this pause?
Oh, sorry. But and so basically, like in the '90s and early 2000s, if you wanted to get a lot of stuff, you had to import it, which back then took months. I want to reiterate. It's not like it is now where it can get here in a couple weeks, and even earlier at that. But yeah, these are actually not DVDs. These are, I think, CTVDs or something like that. I forget exactly what they were called. I had it on. Oh, video CD. That's what they're called. It says right on the cover.
So these are VCDs.
Yeah.
Which is a dead format that nobody remembers.
Supposedly they can work on DVDs on certain like they're actually able to work on most DVD players, but they don't work on Blu-rays for some reason.
So you probably couldn't like throw it in like a PlayStation or an Xbox. Yeah,
you would have to try and find like an actual DVD player, which I should try at some point because I'm curious because I want to watch them. But I love finding.
Have you tried your computer by chance?
My computer actually doesn't have a CD
drive. One of these days I'll have to loan you my external CD drive and see if you can get them to run.
But I do love finding old relics, stuff like that. Actually, when I was at a Salvation Army back in college, I found the complete series of Gunbuster on VHS. And I'm like, oh, okay. I happen to be a big fan of Gainax's early stuff, and Gunbuster is like one of the first things Hideki Anno ever did. It was Japanese audio with subtitles.
Oh, so it was a sub, basically.
It
wasn't even a
subbed.
dub. At a point where that was like a rarity.
Yeah, no, it was subbed, and it... Honestly, I've only played one of them, because I'm kind of too afraid to play them because they're VHSs.
Oh, yeah, that's always a risk you run. I need to look into getting another VCR, because the one I have, I'm worried about. But I think it's a fear with any with VHS anymore.
Yeah, because
you're not going to get it back.
Yeah,
Plus, every time you play them, it degrades the tape a little bit.
Because it's really weird because they're in like cases that are like you'd see at like a library. And I was like
a rental store one, like a plastic clamshell.
Yeah, they were really weird. I could probably fish them out when we're done here and show you.
I'm kind of interested to see that.
Because they had like all this anime. I'm assuming someone just brought their collection in and dumped it there. Which was hilarious because this was me and my anime club nerds. We actually went there to get cosplay stuff for going to Techo back in like 2011, I want to say.
So you guys probably just flipped out and you found
this. It was like they had like Magic Knight Ray Earth VHSs. They had like they didn't just have like cartoons and stuff. They had like legitimate anime that like adult collectors would want. Which was hilarious because my one friend was a librarian and she spent like the whole time we were there putting them in alphabetical order as we were all digging, because like I got them for like $3.
That's happened to me before too. That's really the one thing I love about secondhand stores is you really never know what you're gonna find. Yeah. Because for an example, I've been thrifting since probably about 2008.
Yeah.
And I have seen some truly random stuff that you wouldn't think. Like one point at a Salvation Army, I found a Dreamcast.
Yeah.
For $20 with everything. I didn't get it. I would kick myself for a number of years for it until I finally managed to get a Dreamcast last year. But I've seen that. I've seen like NASCAR diecast. I've seen like vinyl that's worth a lot. I found Beatles records.
Yeah.
That are like, they're worth a pretty good amount of money. So it's like you can really tell that like while there are stores, that will look at stuff and be like, oh, well, this is worth money. We'll have to mark this up. There are other stores that they just get stuff in, and they clearly like don't really research what it is, and they just put it out. To me, I always think the random thing is that somebody that has that, they probably had no idea what it was worth. Just thought it was some old stuff, or maybe a family member passed on, and they were just trying to get rid of stuff. And they just dump it. Having no clue that collectors would want it.
Because it always amazes me because like I love finding really old anime finds. Because like the thing with much older anime stuff is because basically like I said, like basically you were a blooming animation studio or dubbing studio, and basically a lot of them were like the guys back in the 80s, back when anime was still called Japanimation. Back when like there really wasn't a differentiation as there is now.
It was kind of like a subcategory.
Yeah, because again, the term anime is actually much more modern than people think it is, because that really wasn't the name for anime until like I want to say the anime boom in '95 when Dragon Ball Z kind of made anime popular over here. And yes, I know that there was like because there are a lot of anime snobs from like the '80s that are like, no, it started with like Voltron, and when they dubbed it, I'm like, no, it didn't. It started coming here in the '80s, but like that didn't become a thing until the '90s.
It's kind of like throwing in a little bit of music knowledge. It's kind of like rock music. I mean,
Yeah.
grunge started technically in 1985.
Yeah.
But it didn't hit the mainstream until like 91, because like you had bands like Soundgarden. Soundgarden's first release was 1987. Nirvana's first release was 1989. Sonic Youth's first album was 1983. So that's the thing is like just because something starts somewhere, like there's a difference between when it starts and when it really hits the mainstream.
The mainstream. And for anime, it was 95, and it's kind of sad because like nowadays anime, like a lot of people are willing to like anime, but like from 95 till about 2008 is, in my opinion, when anime was at its peak. See, only about 2% of the population in America probably watches anime.
I myself don't, but I've just never gotten into it.
And thank you for allowing me to indulge. But basically, anime was like undeniably popular, and the problem is, basically, television didn't know how to deal with it because, like, for example, one of my favorite shows that I have collected on DVD because you can only get so much of it is Mega Man Anti-Warrior, which is based on the popular Mega Man Battle Network series for Game Boy. That show was literally just a year behind back then, which was common for most animes. Usually we were about a year behind, which meant we actually would be able to get a lot of it put out. But the problem is when we caught up, there would be huge gaps in the release, to the point where over here it got so unpopular that you wouldn't see it get finished over here. They aired the first couple episodes like that year, and then it took like another year before they aired the rest of it. And to make matters worse, you also had the fact that like the channels that were trying to do anime was like Cartoon Network. And while I think Cartoon Network did a good job
back when like Toonami was the thing.
Yeah,
right?
back when Toonami was like a thing. The problem was eventually the people that ran Cartoon Network were out, and the next people that took over for the company hated anime. See, a lot of people, were happy when Toonami came back, but because there was an interview with the guys that ran Toonami, and they were like, or not Toonami, Adult Swim. Basically, they tried to stop airing anime because basically, they would show this show and it would get less popular, so they took it off. But then the fans would call and get mad, like, why'd you take it off? And then they put it back on, and then people the ratings would go up, and then they would just decline again. It was basically like if a little kid, and this is actually a quote from the dude, it was like, imagine a little kid if you took their ball away, and then they're like, because they're like, we don't play with it anymore. Well, I still want it. You give them the ball back, and then they just don't play with it again. Basically, it's I want the ball, but I don't want to play with it.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if running a television network, you're running a business. You're running a business to make money.
Thankfully, anime has picked up because, like, around 2010, streaming sites became a thing, and I actually argue partially the reason why streaming sites became a thing was because people wanted to watch anime, not just because it was a way to replace video stores.
I would say that makes sense because right around like 2009 even, I got back into Batman Beyond, and at that point there was no complete series out. Yeah. I don't even think the box sets were out yet.
No, because
the only way you could get them was you could get selected episodes on VHS, but they didn't have all
later DVD.
And this would have been like I think right around the time like the uncut thing. Like I had never heard of the uncut thing until this point when I got back into it and I was trying to rewatch it all. I ended up finding like a website that had all of them.
Yeah.
It's like that makes sense, like with that streaming because I think that was like right around the time like because Netflix wasn't even streaming yet.
Speaking of media things, I think a big thing him and I are both actually, it's kind of interesting you and I are both into, is finding lost media.
Oh yeah, lost media is such a fascinating thing to me, especially old films from like the 30s and the 40s and 20s even. My
thing is I love finding stuff that basically television aired once, because kids are spoiled today in my opinion. Because like back in the old days, and I'm talking the 90s, but it was throughout TV's history. There were things they would only air once.
And that was it.
And that was it.
And it wouldn't be. They wouldn't even really save the on-air tape.
And if you were lucky, you taped it. But even then, and thankfully, there's a lot of people like us who are like, "Hey, let's
preserve this.
Let's preserve it." And that is one of the great things about the internet is it is a really great thing for preservation.
Like I'm not even one thing. One of the biggest lost media things I think is something I'm not really even into is Doctor Who.
Oh,
like I'm not a Doctor Who fan by any means. I never really have gotten into it. It's never really been my cup of tea. I guess.
Take over then, because I know this a little bit more than you.
That was one thing I found out when I started getting into lost media stuff because it was a fascinating thing that. It's actually funny how I got into it.
Well, yeah, because I was about to say, this affected the Beatles and stuff, too, because it wasn't just Doctor Who.
Yeah, if I might elaborate real quick how I got into it. When I was in 9th grade, I took a computer course.
Right.
And because I have a very weird way of typing. I don't use homeroom keys, but I'm actually faster. Because I've been on computers my whole life.
Yeah,
so using the homeroom keys actually slows me down. But
I hated that when I was in middle school. They would try to make us learn the home keys. I'm like, but I've used a computer my whole life.
Yeah, but I would get stuff done before everybody else. And Wikipedia wasn't blocked on our school server. So I would just go on Wikipedia and go down the rabbit hole and waste 40 minutes of class because I had everything done. There was no point in me.
Oh man, Wikipedia became such a way to kill time back when I was a young pup as well. Just
I forget what it was. It might have been a Beatles thing that led me to list of lost film or something. And I read through the whole list and I was like, man, this is interesting, you know?
So to more clarify what he's talking about with Doctor Who and the BBC in general, see, back in the early days of television, reruns was not a thing. Nor was it something like, say, syndication. Now when I say syndication, basically TV shows have this thing where you film a minimum of a certain amount of episodes. And in doing so...
Production quota, basically.
Yeah, production quota. Basically, you want enough so that you can basically make reruns out of it, but in a way that people want to keep watching it. Because, if you have a certain amount of episodes, people kind of forget, oh, what episode am I on? Or, So...
Previously.
Yeah. Now, traditionally, that usually is 65 episodes. At least for animation, it is. But in the 60s, there was no such thing as that. In fact... There actually were guild strikes and actors stuff because basically, and one of the reasons why is, and this is more for Britain I think than the U.S. because I think the U.S. had a little bit of it but not nearly on the same scale. But basically, actors were like, no, you don't rerun the stuff. If you're going to do it again, you're going to have the actors come back and we're going to reenact it like we're doing theater, which
because television was really a new format.
It really was.
Nobody really knew how to how to deal with it. It was really the new frontier at that point.
Yeah. And so not only that, but it was really expensive to keep film reel because they didn't do this on videotape. Or they did it on film reel. And film reel is expensive to maintain and keep. So in the BBC's case what they would do is they would either tape over it or if they were feeling especially spiteful, they would just grab big reels of it, dump it all together, and have a merry bonfire.
Yeah, kind of going back to the Beatles thing. That's not only true with their video, also their audio archive because the Beatles actually played a number of shows on the BBC radio that some of the master tapes still exist.
Yeah.
Most of the audio recordings of it you can find now are by people taping it off air.
Yeah.
Just hooking the reel-to-reel player up and letting it rip, So it's always been a thing. It's where it's, the Beatles BBC, they recorded so much stuff for the BBC, like covers that were never released anywhere else, that they didn't play live. The song Youngblood?
Yeah.
The Beatles have a version of that was only done on BBC Air, I think, once. And a recording of it survived, but the stuff you can find for the Beatles BBC stuff, because they've released 2 albums worth of it. You have stuff they've recovered and remastered and tried to restore. The quality ranges from absolute garbage to soundboard, master reels.
Yeah. And for me, that is actually more insulting than the Doctor Who stuff, which I'm going to get to, but the Beatles stuff, I get that, you did kind of, thing was a fad, but the fact that they became so popular with the States and then worldwide, like, why would you? Because like they were, regardless of how long their popularity was going to be, they clearly became like a cultural icon.
Well, and it's like, I've seen differing information on this.
Yeah.
The Beatles' last Top of the Pops performance, that tape was wiped in 1973. So after everything, so like you would think, it's actually interesting to me that the Capitol Records, Capitol Records / Parlophone, which Parlophone was the master company that owned Capitol Records via buyout. Very complicated thing. I'm not going to dive too much into it. It's interesting that they were actually further ahead on this because the entire reason that the Beatles song Her Majesty, which is the end of Abbey Road, it comes after the song The End. There's like a couple minutes of silence. There's like it goes in, the record runs into the run out groove. Then another song kicks on for a couple seconds and then it fades out. And that's where the record stops. That actually existed because it was part of the second side of Abbey Road, which was called the medley, which was all these unfinished bits and stuff they had that they were like, let's just record them all and splice them all together as one big medley. Her Majesty was originally in the middle. It was between Polythene Pam and Me, Mr. Mustard. And they listened to it. They're like, I don't really like it. Let's chop that out. So they took a razor, cut it out of the reel, slammed it together.
I think because Mr. Mustard is mean, he's actually like a brown mustard, like a spicy brown.
Maybe. But so what happened was they threw it out. But the chief engineer had been told by Parlophone, you do not throw any tape out from a Beatles session. Period.
Yeah, because
So he went and got it out of the trash, he spliced it onto the end of the tape, didn't tell him about it. So when they went back to listen to the final mix, they're talking, right, and then boom, it kicks on, and Paul McCartney was like, I like that.
Well, because for me, and to be fair, I'm not saying it was purely malicious.
Yeah, it was just that was just how stuff was done.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the audio portion got a better hold on that before the video did.
And getting back to Doctor Who, if I remember correctly, originally it was 180 episodes of Doctor Who.
Yeah, it was 180. I watched the doc on it.
And if you really want to know about this more in depth, look up SF Debris because he actually did a really great thing about the loss of those episodes. Now, what's actually really funny is because and a lot of it's actually really important to the show because it was a majority of the first Doctor, including his regeneration. The first regeneration of the first Doctor into the second Doctor is lost. We have I think a recording of it.
Because most fans were putting the audio recorders.
Yeah.
They were doing what people were doing with the Beatles stuff. They were putting the audio recorders up.
Most, if not all, of Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor, is lost. And there is one episode lost of or a couple episodes lost of the third Doctor, but thankfully they have some black and white recordings of those. I really would like to see them recolor those episodes, just because it's really weird. Because if you get in the box sets of the classic Doctors, for example, Invasion of the Dinosaurs, the first episode's in black and white, which is weird, especially because the third Doctor is the first Doctor that they shot in color. In fact, I actually have his first serial, The Spearhead in Space, which is actually really good. It's actually one of my favorite Doctor Who classic serials is The Spearhead in Space. Not only is it a great regeneration story, it has the Nestine Intelligence, which is basically a race of sentient plastic. It's actually really cool because basically they take over and they make mannequins and their foot soldiers and they have laser guns in their hands. It's actually really interesting just because it talks about the 70s fear of plastic and how it was replacing things. It was actually really neat to me. But there is a couple lost episodes of that, but thankfully we actually have audio recordings of every single episode lost, and the BBC's actually gone back and is animating episodes of it. And they will have occasionally they will splice in whatever footage they have left.
Because another thing too that was in one of the docs I watched, I don't know if it was the same one you mentioned, but I've seen a doc on it where it actually showed a map of where this is where leads are, and it shows
because they've actually
this is
recovered
where,
some of the episodes.
Yeah, they'll be this is where the tapes were sent. This place destroyed theirs. This place they don't know where it is.
They actually I think found a couple episodes in a church basement because I think they were clearing stuff out for a bazaar or something like that, and they found episodes of Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's always weird like that. There was some film on that list I read that I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, because there's a couple of because it's not just TV shows. I think there's a couple of films that the BBC did that are gone.
Yeah, this was one of the very early films, and I think they found it in the closet in an abandoned Russian mental institution, which I'm just like, that is so random, but you can't make that up.
No,
Like, it sounds like you're making it up, but you can't. Like that's actually
that's
where
one
it
of my
was.
that's one of my things. Like if someone sounds like they're making it up, they're probably not, just because of how much.
Especially with you and me, like when you and I talk about stuff, I'm like, if it sounds like I'm making shit up, I'm really not making stuff up. It's that it's so randomly weird that it's stuff like that.
Now there is one episode of the show that is lost, but not. That is actually the serial known as Shada. Okay, so basically, to give you this took place during the Fourth Doctor, because technically the Fourth Doctor is the only one that is the last Doctor to have anything missing, but it's not really. So basically, I can't think of the guy's name. The guy who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Oh, Douglas Adams. Douglas Adams, actually, before he became the popular guy that did The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, he got to start being the lead scriptwriter for Doctor Who. And actually, I argue it's probably one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite writers for the show, because like he does like serious stories, but he still allows the show to be kind of silly. Because I mean, if you've seen the classic series, it's hokey. Like one time the Doctor was like restrained with bubble wrap. It was supposed to be like science, sci-fi. If you think classic Star Trek looks cheap, watch Doctor Who.
I'm actually going to get into Star Trek too when we finish, because
but-
I have a lost film thing that goes with Star Trek.
But basically, Douglas Adams was basically he had this storyline that he was going to do called Shada, and he was like, this is going to be my magnum opus. And so like the episode that was going to come before it was known as The Horns of Nyman. The production ran too long, and it was a script that he pulled out because he's like, I don't got anything else before it, so let's just use the script I wasn't really fond of, but I think I can touch it up and
I
fix
think I
it.
can finesse it.
Yeah, Horns of Nyman is awful for it. It basically is, hey, you know the Legend of the Minotaur? Let's do that, but in space. It's so bad. I might actually show it to you one of these days, because it's.
I mean, I made you watch Wonder Woman 1974, which tune in. That's probably gonna air before this one.
Yeah,
but
this will but
that movie's horrible.
Yeah, but like, I'll show you like Nash's review of Horns of Nyman, because like legitimately they beat it using this metal called jasonite. I'm like, wow, you could not be more subtle if you tried. But the problem is, as they gotten halfway through filming Shada, an actor's strike happened, which basically meant they couldn't finish filming it. Now they have finished filming. They actually had a couple ways you could watch this. One of the early ones was a CD-ROM video where basically they would show you the clips of it, but whatever they didn't have finished, they would bring Tom Baker back. Which this was like when he was in like his 70s. I think he's in like his 90s right now.
Is this the one where like they would have the Doctor explaining?
Yeah, basically he'd come on, and in fact he actually did a lot of that for when they were trying to redo the older episodes. Basically they would have Tom Baker come on and basically talk. Like in one of my favorites is he talks about the first regeneration. He's like, for most Time Lords, regeneration is a noble experience where they shed off their old shell and become new. For me, it was never that sort of thing. I awoke in seizing and writhing in agony on the floor of the TARDIS console room. But basically they did that, and then because Doctor Who they do audio dramas, and they do a lot of them. They actually tried retelling this story, but with the Eighth Doctor. Now, most stories that you can't do that because it's like I think it's interesting to see how other Doctors would handle like previous Doctor stories. But Shada was meant for the Fourth Doctor. So, like, when he, like, basically, like, it's just weird seeing the Eighth Doctor trying to do it, because he's just not that Doctor.
Yeah.
What eventually happened is, and I actually own it, the BBC took what they didn't finish, and they animated it. Basically, you would have, whatever they didn't have finished, they brought back as much of the voice cast as they could. Which is really weird, because, like, you go from, like, you know, the bouncy young Tom Baker to this elderly-sounding Tom Baker. And, like, they basically finished it. And it's actually, in my opinion, I can see why Douglas Adams had so much faith in it. Just to give, like, a quick summation of the story. Basically, the Doctor and his companion Lana, who himself is actually a Time Lady, like a female Time Lord. But back then they called them Time Ladies. Nowadays they're just Time Lords. But basically,
I'll say again, we're running on script.
They basically go to this professor at I think it's Cambridge University actually, and basically what you find out is he's actually going to visit another Time Lord because he had actually stolen a book that's important to Time Lord history, a book that when you open it causes fluctuations in the space-time continuum. Because it's actually like a science, like, cause I think it kind of goes into like the history of the Time Lords, because like there's like this whole thing where there's these two gods that created the Time Lord Society. There you have, I can't think of his name. He's actually a Time Lord villain that comes back a lot in the modern era, but you have him and you have Omega, but they pronounce it Omega for some reason. Basically, the one dude created the Time Lord Society and kind of founded Gallifrey, the homeworld of the Time Lords, and then you have Omega, who created their ability to time travel, which is the eye of harmony that all TARDISes are connected to. Basically, it's this star they use to make time travel possible. In fact, I think the Doctor has gone to the center of his TARDIS before, and that you see the eye of harmony. But like basically, Rassilon, that was his name. Basically, Rassilon was evil, kind of. More or less, he wanted Time Lords to reign supreme over the universe, and Omega's like, that's not what we do. Later on, they try to imply that there's a third god who might be the Doctor, but not. But like that was because like that was towards the end of the classic series, and unfortunately, the series got canceled at that point before they could really explain whether or not all that was true or not. Which is a shame, because that actually is one of my favorite Seventh Doctor stories, which is the Remembrance of the Daleks, which has the Dalek Civil War, which has the Special Weapons Dalek, which is hilarious to say out loud, the Special Weapons Dalek. It literally is just a Dalek with a big gun sticking out. So it literally looks like it's so stupid. But it's actually kind of interesting just to see that how much they tried to make Shada work. Partially, I think because of after Douglas Adams' passing, they wanted to make, because that really was, in my opinion, one of his greatest stories for that show, and it's so sad he never got to see it actually get completed. But yeah, that's just me geeking out about Doctor Who. If you hadn't noticed, I have a sonic screwdriver, but I'm not going to go back in my room to get it.
Another instance of lost film too is the original plot pilot for Star Trek, The Cage.
Oh yeah, because didn't it have like a couple of pilots?
It had two.
Yeah.
It had one, which was The Cage, which Kirk wasn't in it. It was about Pike. Spock was there, wearing yellow for some reason.
Yeah. In fact, didn't one of them actually have a character that's like the father of the dude from the motion picture?
I can't remember exactly because it's been a long time since I watched The Cage. It's actually on my box set.
Okay.
Because I only have season 1 on DVD. But that for years was only available in chunks before it finally. I think it was actually Gene Roddenberry's copy. You know, he used to show it off at conventions, and then finally they went back and cleaned it up and spliced in what was missing and got it complete. But that was an example of that being like something that was lost, and then they brought it back. And Lost Media also kind of opens up this thing where it's just stuff that has never been re-released, like Aftermath. You can't buy Aftermath. For those that don't know, Aftermath was this really bad sequel to MASH that had Father Mulcahy,
oh yeah, that's what you told me about this.
Klinger, and Colonel Potter.
Yeah.
All working in the States at the same hospital. It's never been re-released. I think it only ran for two seasons, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 2 seasons.
And then
which is actually impressive for a really bad spinoff.
And then you have like Radar, which was going to be a Radar spinoff show where he's a police officer.
What is it with TV shows and having spin-off characters become like policemen or private eyes?
I don't know, but that was the thing. That's never been re-released to my knowledge. I'm amazed that Tabitha got a DVD release.
Oh yeah,
I have that.
The movie to Bewitched, the sequel to Bewitched, right? Where it's
where it's
their
about
daughter.
Tabitha. Yeah. I'm surprised that got a DVD release at any point.
You know what's
I found that I had to buy that just because I was like, this is you're never gonna find this again.
This kind of goes into my speaking of, because I'm actually a big nut for the history of Hanna-Barbera. I don't know everything about the history of Hanna-Barbera. I find Hanna-Barbera interesting just because, like, I think the problem is a lot of people, especially animation guys, like me and as stated multiple times when Doug's on the show, him and I are big animation guys. But like Hanna-Barbera gets a lot, like, and I kind of feel fairly so because Hanna-Barbera, in my opinion, kind of caused the animation industry to kind of stagnate for a long time, which they didn't really pull themselves out until like the mid to late 90s when Disney brought back the Disney Renaissance. For anyone, basically this period from like about the 60s to the early 90s was known as the animation age ghetto. Basically, animation was made for on the cheap because like TV animation, for those of you who don't know, is usually made on the cheap. Nowadays, TV animation, in my opinion, is actually pretty good for the most part. Mostly because we have digital techniques that makes it easier. But in the early days of animation, because basically animation is shot in, I think it's called first, seconds, and thirds. First is basically every shot of that is different, which is usually like Disney movies or just animated movies in general. Basically, if you were to still frame everything, you would see a different frame each time. Quality television animation is what's filmed in is seconds, where every 2 frames is different. Basically, you still get a pretty fluid look. Batman the Animated Series, I think, is shot in seconds. Actually, it might be shot in firsts. No, I think it's shot in seconds. But basically, you'll have like 2 scenes that look very similar or the same, and then you have one that's not. And in my opinion, that's the best you can get for like early 80s and 90s animation is seconds. And then you come to thirds, which is what Hanna-Barbera is known for. Every 3 frames of animation is different. Which is basically where we developed the whole talking heads thing. Where basically, alright, imagine me and Colton were animated characters. We would not move anything except our heads and or lips. See, I'm talking to Colton right now. And now I've turned my head away. That is the animation you got back then. But I
Up
find...
there with, gee, I wonder what book they're going to pick up off the shelf. It's
Yeah.
not that it's drawn differently than the whole background.
No, don't touch that one. It's not. It's just the background. But Hanna-Barbera was so interesting to me because, like, you know, like when they started, like, you know, they were doing Tom and Jerry, and like basically animated shorts for like the 40s and 50s. Because a lot of people kind of forget that Tom and Jerry was actually created by Hanna-Barbera, which is hilarious because then they got bought out by Warner Brothers. Because Chuck Jones actually did, like, I think the 60s Tom and Jerry stuff, which those shorts are awful. Because it has the Looney Tunes feel to it, which doesn't really work for me with Tom and Jerry, because Tom and Jerry, I think, has
Tom and Jerry has its very unique feel.
You know, and yeah, I know people are like, well, it's basically just Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, but with a cat and a mouse. I'm like, not really. Like for one, like there's a lot of times where actually Tom and Jerry seem to be kind of friendly with each other. Like they more enjoy chasing and tormenting each other, but they can work together when they want to. But like it's so interesting to see, like, because like for so many years they tried being like Disney, where they had all these characters like Yogi Bear and Huckleberry Hound, but then like really the only ones that in my
Speed Buggy.
Hop in, Mako. Give you a ride. But, you know, they only had 2 really big successes, in my opinion. Flintstones, which...
I love Flintstones.
I mean, I do, but I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Flintstones.
It's because they used it to sell Bush beer.
How about a Winston break? Oh my God. You gotta look up the Winston cigarette commercials with the Flintstones guys. Those are wild.
Yeah, that's some wild shit right there. That's like some YouTube poop before YouTube poop.
There's going to be a lot of Bush sold tonight. Which I'm like, Fred, I want to know what Bush you are pushing. But
obviously it's regular Bush, not that Bush Light shit.
The other course being Scooby-Doo, which, as we just made, there were a lot of those too, like Speed Buggy, Jabberjaw.
What was it, Captain Frankenstein? And
oh yeah, there was a Captain. There was also Captain Caveman and the Angels.
Josie and the Pussycats.
Josie and the...
My personal favorite... Josie and the Pussycats in
Josie and the
space.
Pussycats is actually hilarious because I actually argue they're not a Scooby-Doo ripoff, but an Archie's ripoff, which is hilarious because they made the Archies.
Yeah, they're actually in Archie's.
Actually, I think Archie Comics owns the Josie and the Pussycats now.
Yeah, like I said, that was something because when I was a kid, I was a rarity, I guess, because I had satellite at like 2001.
Yeah,
I had really early satellite TV, and it's like I was getting like I remember like being in first grade in like 2002, and like we used to do these interviews for class, and they would be like, "Well, what's your favorite TV channel?" And I'm like, I like Boomerang.
Yeah.
Because Boomerang had all the old stuff. You know, I had like Flintstones and the Jetsons and Josie and the Pussycats and Scooby Doo and the Batman Superman hour with Super Friends and like everybody in my class was like, "What's Boomerang?" Like I think there was like one kid that had satellite and he was like, "Oh yeah, I love Boomerang," and everybody else was like we had to explain what Boomerang is. And we're like, it's Cartoon Network, but it airs all the old stuff.
Yeah, it just which is kind of sad because Boomerang's no more. Sadly, I think it's now like their.
It is, but it airs like the early 2000s and 90s stuff now. It's not like it's airing the older stuff like it was, which is
which is a shame because like that was like a really great way to catch some of like Hanna-Barbera's superhero stuff like Space Ghost, Birdman, which probably more people know about Birdman thanks to Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, than they do the actual cartoon.
Like I said, when I was a kid, like I think when I brought up, like, because like, we were talking about that, like, when, like, what old cartoons are on there, and I was like, well, Scooby-Doo's on there, and I'm like, not just Scooby-Doo, but, like, they have the Scooby-Doo where Shaggy's in a red shirt.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Everybody thought I was on crack,
because
they're like, what do you mean Shaggy has a red shirt? I'm like, no, he has a red shirt. There's these episodes where it's just him, Velma, and Scrappy.
Yeah.
And like, that's it. And they're like, nobody believed me. Until like years later, when I was like I wasn't lying. I had them.
It helped that like I think towards like in like the mid to early 2000s, they would do like a thing where they would basically just run all the Scooby Doo shows together. You'd get like an episode of Where Are You, which
new Scooby Doo movies, which
new
I love.
Scooby Doo movies, and then they would play some of the really weird stuff like the new Scooby Doo mysteries, which was hilarious because that actually has its second opening. Is a parody of Michael Jackson's Thriller because Thriller came out at the time.
I'll tell you what my favorite
Shaggy's gonna be there.
Because I used to live, because this would only come on Friday nights. I used to wait up to watch this on TV, right? Mm-hmm. And that was the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. My God, I loved that.
I only ever saw one episode of that when they used to re-air it.
They used to air it at like I want to say like 10 o'clock at night on Friday night, which I'm like, why was it airing that late? I don't know. But
I because I was just so curious about the show. They released it on DVD. I own 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo on DVD. Let me tell you,
you're gonna have to loan that to me because I'm interested to rewatch that.
And let me tell you, it's one of these days we're gonna just sit down and watch 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. I'm down for that. Let me tell you, it sucks. Because, like, people are like, well, it actually deals with real monsters. I'm like, kind of.
We'll do that, and then we got to do a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Oh, I'm so down for Pup Named Scooby-Doo. I need to find the box sets for that.
Yeah, but it's I was talking about that in class, and I brought up, I'm like, yeah, and then they have, like, Josie and the Pussycats. And they have this really cool one where they're in outer space. The only person who knew what I was talking about was the teacher, who saw it when it aired. And I was like... I was like, this show's awesome.
I love how you're probably the only person I know that would defend the in outer space.
Because it's awesome, man. the theme song alone is awesome.
I know. I'm one of those people that like you get like the space race boom of TV shows going into space was just.
Then you had stuff that they aired back in the early 2000s, like they re-aired on Boomerang that didn't age well, like Chan Clan. Which has not aged
casual
well
60s racism.
Like I loved that show as a kid, and like I still enjoy it. But like watching it now, I'm like there is so much like built-in racism. I
don't. To be fair to Hanna-Barbera, because you're going to see a lot. If you go into like their back catalog, you're going to see a lot of racism.
The Witch Doctor from Scooby-Doo?
Oh my God, the Witch Doctor!
And he's so popular they can't ignore him either. Because
he's in the title.
Well,
he's in the first season
even
title.
At work, do you remember at work when we found the figure of him? I was like, what?
Oh yeah, they have the voodoo doll. I'm like, no, don't make a toy of that.
Casualize that shit.
Meanwhile, like, there's no Kooky Space Kook toy, which I know you are.
I hate that laugh. That laugh scares the shit out of me.
I love the Kooky Space Kook.
There was. Do you remember? And this is a little bit of a tangent, I know, but
this whole episode is tangent the video.
Yeah. But this is just, again, it's weird shit we like that most people don't expect. Do you remember the episode of, I think it was New Scooby-Doo Movies? Was that the one where it was just Scooby, Shaggy, Velma, and Scrappy?
No, that would be... You're thinking of the New Scooby-Doo Mysteries.
Yeah, New Scooby-Doo Mysteries. Do you remember the episode with the witch?
I kind of do.
I have that on tape, dude, and I joke you not.
That episode scared the shit out of me.
There's a couple of actually decent episodes of the new Scooby-Doo mysteries, especially the ones.
I don't know what it was like. It terrified me. That and Zombie Island, both of those scared the living hell out
I'll
of me.
tell you one that gets me that I don't think a lot of people, but the witch in it's really creepy. Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, with the weird octopus woman thing that they fight at the end of that with her weird monster, the Phantom
I was
Creeper.
never creeped out by that, but that one was kind of weird.
Well, I actually love her little bad guy.
I used to rent that.
He's like a plant monster, and I just love his name. When I used to make my own video games when I was a little kid, I used to always have like a villain known as the Phantom Creeper because like it was like this weird plant monster. But like what I was getting to was one of the things that makes me laugh so hard is just how much they try to make Flintstones modern as the like when they would do new things like.
Do you remember? You know what we should review?
You're gonna say Flintstone Kids?
Oh, you ready for this?
All right.
Yo, let's review the live action Flintstones movie.
Oh god.
The one.
Okay.
It's the one. I think it's.
I mean,
it's
I
either
like the first one.
Is it the first one or the second one that Dale Earnhardt's in it? Like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like, he's in it, like with the full on costume and
Actually,
everything. I think that's the second one.
Yeah, that's probably Viva Rock Vegas.
It's Viva Rock Vegas because he's in that.
Oh,
which is just
God.
such a weird late '90s time capsule. Let's have a live action Flintstones movie.
Viva Rock Vegas is so.
What if they made a live action Jetsons movie now?
I don't know how they would do that because like it would look so anachronistic. Actually, one of my favorite VHSs that I still have. So in the '80s, basically Hanna-Barbera was desperate. Granted, they didn't fold until like the '90s after SWAT Cats didn't do well. Have you ever seen SWAT Cats?
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
SWAT Cats is awesome, but unfortunately, SWAT Cats was axed by Ted Turner of all people because he's like, that's too violent, and I need more episodes of Captain Planet. Me, legitimately, that was why that show got canceled.
I can believe that.
Which pisses me off because I'm like, Captain Planet sucks. I actually go and burn down a tree every time an episode of Captain Planet comes on my TV.
Jesus.
Captain Planet.
Oh yeah, the robot chick. Anybody who hasn't watched it, because we've referenced
they
it a
make
couple times.
so many pot shots.
Watch the Robot Chicken Captain Planet sketch with Ted Turner.
Like,
it is so funny.
Like I give Ted Turner a lot of credit. He actually did care about kids. He made Cartoon Network, but
yeah. I'm trying to think other stuff that I remember aired on Boomerang that I cannot.
But yeah, getting back to my weird.
Nobody else knew about.
So they made a bunch of '80s specials that were movies. Basically, they were like TV specials. Basically, it was called the Hanna-Barbera Select 10 package, and you had like these really weird. Because I've only seen a couple of them. I know a lot of them, but there were 3 Scooby-Doo ones, which I've seen all of them. Scooby-Doo Meets the Boo Brothers, Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, and Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf, which were all basically backdoor pilots for Scooby-Doo shows, because, like...
The only one I never had as a kid was Reluctant Werewolf. I never saw that one at all. Like, the place I rented tapes from back in the day had
you're not
School
missing,
and the other one.
You're not missing much.
No,
Did you watch
I've
Wacky Racers?
I've seen it since.
Wacky Racers, but,
like, I've seen it since then, because they aired on Boomerang, like, surprisingly frequently.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not very good compared to the other two.
There was one, actually, that, in my opinion, was the most brilliant thing they ever did. It was the Flintstones meets the Jetsons. Basically, Elroy develops a time machine. Because, for some reason, that was the thing Elroy did. In fact, I think there was actually 2 Jetson ones. There was the Jetson Flintstone one.
Which I had on tape.
And Judy Jetson and the Rockets, or something. Basically, it's like a...
Which I've never even heard of.
Oh, it is wild, dude. But, getting back to the time travel one. Elroy builds a time machine and accidentally sends his family back to the prehistoric era, where, of course, they run into the Flintstones. Well, due to, like, some accident, Fred accidentally activates the time machine, sending the Flintstones into the Jetsons timeline, and leaving the Jetsons behind to basically... Because, George gets famous because he has, like, this hover belt that he uses to, like, basically be in charge of Bedrock, which also has, his wife, which has Jane in this loincloth, like, this loincloth looking thing that I'm like... It's so weird because, like, Judy falls in love with, like, a caveman guy who she meets when she goes back into the future. She meets his distant ancestor and dates him. It's so so goofy. But basically, the Jetsons get back in time, but the time machine gets destroyed. I think by George's boss, because he wants to keep the Flintstones and the Rubbles in the future because he can make money off them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the entire.
And then apparently the Flintstones' car gathered enough time travel energy that it gets them back to the past.
Which is like some fanfic level.
I love it because George, like, Elroy tries to give like a scientific explanation. George is like, "No, Elroy, I think it wanted to get it back home as much as they did." Which I think, fun fact, was I think one of the last times that voice actor did, because they did actually, them and the Flintstones got another season of episodes in the 80s. In fact, I think they show them on Boomerang.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen every episode of Flintstones, and
some of them are weird because, like, I think the Flintstone one, they actually aged Pebbles and Bam Bam up a little
yes,
bit.
They're like
little
kids.
kids.
They have a band. I've seen it.
Well, no, I'm not talking about the one where they're teenagers. There's Flintstone episodes where like they're slightly younger.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I've seen those ones.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if you were talking about that one or the one where Pebbles and Bam Bam.
I love Flintstones to death. I've seen literally every.
Okay, sorry, because there is a Pebbles and Bam Bam where they're teens.
The only one I really haven't seen is just the live action ones for good.
I actually remember. I think I was really little when they actually showed the episode where Pebbles and Bam Bam get married. Where they actually, ABC actually was like, we interrupt tonight's episode of America's Funniest Home Videos to bring you the premiere of the wedding of Pebbles and Bam Bam. Like, it was the marriage of, like, Princess Di. Which, also, I remember, I was old enough to remember when the death of Princess Di. Just to give you how much old I am, especially because at the time of this recording, I'm, like, 3 or 4 days away from turning 30.
I was like, I'm 20... I'm a couple months off of 25, so you're not that much older than I am, so... But,
Well, it's weird when you're almost when you're going to be 3 decades old.
This is going to be the last thing I bring up about Boomerang, because I think we've talked about Boomerang all the time.
Yeah.
I can still remember the point of the day when I would turn Boomerang off and like go to Cartoon Network, because I would be at my grandma's house. The minute I heard the freaking theme song to Snorks, that shit was getting changed.
Snorks is so bad.
I hated that. I hated that, and I hated the Smurfs.
Hey,
I hated both of them damn shows.
Hey, you like Smurfs? We're gonna put them underwater.
Like I would hear it. I would hear the theme song. I'm like, nope, turn the channel. I'm done.
Snorks is so blatantly just a Smurfs.
No, it's so horrible. I hate that, and I understand there are people that like both of those, but like, even as a kid, I was like, I don't like these at all.
There's something to Smurfs that I don't really mind, mainly because it has
Snorks is just
Snorks
annoying.
is just underwater Smurfs.
And
there's not even anything good to it.
The show's annoying, and the theme song is annoying.
I take it back. There's one good thing for Snorks, and it's the one joke they did in the Family Guy one. You know, you're a pretty nice boy, Snork. Most male Snorks only have one thing in mind. Oops! And she bends over, and his antenna goes up. It's like that's the only good thing about Snorks is that one joke.
Yeah, I never really cared for Snorks.
I can't blame you. There was another Hanna-Barbera show I remember. It was called The Paw Paws. It's about these little Native American bears. And whenever giant monsters would show up, the one bear had like a magic thing amulet that allowed him to make this giant totem they have come to life. And they're literally like these wooden robots that they had like an eagle one and a bear. And I was like, what is this? Because back when Hollywood Video was a thing, I used to rent all sorts of...
That should be what we talk about next, is video stores. I think you and I both have a mutual love and appreciation.
That might be the one we film next after this. But I picked this video because I'm like, well, I've never really watched this one before. It was so weird, dude. Like, legitimately, I might have to find a clip of it on my phone when we're switching out recordings, but legitimately, it is the weirdest thing I've ever watched, and I've watched some weird stuff, but I guess we might as well think about wrapping this up because I feel like we've talked.
The only other thing I can think of that I'm into that most people would not suspect is that I actually do a lot of writing and I do a lot of drawing.
Yeah, no,
I'm not very I don't share a lot of it.
Yeah,
but I'm very into doing both of those, and I've been RPing on Tumblr since probably 2013, 2012. I've been RPing a little bit before that, but
you actually showed me a lot of your RPing when we've got nothing better to do.
Yeah, but
I think we've covered a lot of stuff with this. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot more that you and I are into,
Too.
but like those are the big ones. I think that most people would be like,
There's
wow,
stuff
you guys
I
are
could
into
talk
that?
about, but it's stuff that I don't like a lot of people knowing I'm into.
It's,
He probably knows what I'm talking about right now.
no, I do, and it's like there's stuff that again that I'm into that I don't want to talk about, but
But
I think that's gonna do it for this episode, guys. As
Yep.
always, I am Average Joe Squad,
and I'm Songets 134.
and as always, we ask you
Remember the hyphen
and take care. I gotta move down to the bed.